Hello and welcome to episode 119 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree. That is linktree.com/GnittWitt. I am on Instagram. I am on Threads. I am on TikTok. I am on YouTube. And of course, you can find this podcast over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It turns out that this podcast was not available on iHeartRadio for the longest time. And then I went and corrected that. So if you're a big iHeartRadio user looking for the latest video game news, well, you have probably already found it because you're listening to this podcast. But if for any reason you haven't been listening to this podcast and iHeartRadio was the reason, it's now on iHeartRadio, among other places that I have added to the list of places to make this podcast available. Turns out that not everybody uses YouTube, not everybody uses Spotify, not everybody uses Apple Podcasts, which is fine. Some people just use a generic RSS reader, which is great. That's available. Some people, I think, are trying to get their podcasts on Audible or Amazon, whatever 9 different things Amazon has for their stuff. I think Google has a thing, or they don't have a thing anymore. They're bringing back a thing. Google's a whole thing. But anyways, in case you were wondering, hey, when and where can I find this podcast? The answer is more places and now. So thank you for joining me on the show today. We're going to try our absolute best, despite whatever's going on out there in the world right now, to talk about video games, to focus on video games to the best of my ability to do so. If you want to talk about other things, you can certainly find me on the internet, and I'll talk about anything that you want to talk about. I'll talk whatever is on your mind. We'll spit game, but for today, to the best of my ability, I would like to focus on video games and just that. Been playing a ton of games. Last week, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered came out, as well as Dragon Age the Veilguard. I have been playing both of those games. My reviews, plural, for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 are up now over at bigredbarrel.com. One more time for the people in the cheap seats, that is bigredbarrel.com, where you will be able to go find my reviews for both the campaign as well as the multiplayer and the zombies mode together. Yeah, if you're trying to find, so basically what, a lot of sites were doing zombies and separate multiplayer separate, campaign separate. I didn't necessarily do that just because there is some ties that exist between zombies and multiplayer. So what I have is a campaign review up now at bigredbarrel.com, as well as a zombies and a multiplayer review that is also up at bigredbarrel.com. We talked a lot about Call of Duty Black Ops 6, the campaign, last week. My review is up now. I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10. I really liked it. I think it's a great story. It's a ton of fun. And also hopefully a shining example of what Call of Duty campaigns can be going forward. The only thing I wish that they did was maybe have a better use case for the Omni movement system. But other than that, I think that game is a ton of fun, and I really like the campaign. The multiplayer, on the other hand, I think is a multiplayer system that is a little back to basics. A little classic throwback in some sense. The exception being, of course, that Omni movement system. For example, they have redone the way the Prestige system works to be more aligned with what Prestige was in the past. Prestige, if you don't know, as you play Call of Duty multiplayer, you are earning experience points. You are ranking up, leveling up. Each level gives you new unlocks, new weapons, new whatever. You can rank up and level weapons separately, which unlocks new attachments and stuff for that weapon. So there's multiple paths to progression in Call of Duty multiplayer. And once you hit the max level, you can basically lock the stuff that you had already unlocked and do it again, but with the promise being that you'll get more perks, bonuses, not perks, but more bonuses and more unlocks as part of doing it again. And they have given you a lot of, road to do that again and again and again to level up as much as possible. I will say this, I am not a zombies guy. It's weird to even consider myself a zombies guy. And I say that because I've actually quite enjoyed my time with zombies this year. It is a back to basics approach to zombies. Last year, Modern Warfare 3 had like an open world zombies mode that I didn't even try. Cold War, Call of Duty Cold War, Black Ops Cold War, had like an open world zombies thing. So they've done weird stuff to zombies over the years, and what they've done is try to bring it back to a round based. You are shooting zombies to earn money. You are spending that money to open larger areas of the level. You're also spending that money on upgrades to the guns you have, different perks, different bonuses, but all of that stuff exists within the round of zombies that you are playing. Of course, the ties to the multiplayer is that you will be earning experience points to level up your rank and still earn different unlocks as part of doing that. So if you did want to grind out and do prestige in the zombies mode, for example, instead of the multiplayer mode, you could absolutely do that, vice versa, and all that stuff. I think the thing for me with the multiplayer is that the Omni movement system works better in multiplayer. However, I find that like diving really doesn't help because it's too easy to dive in a way that just exposes yourself and gets you killed. The sliding is much more effective than the slide that was in last year's Modern Warfare 3. So it's a little bit easier to get a little bit more distance to make it, to that cover point or around the corner or through that opening, whatever it is, whatever area you're trying to get to. So Omni movement system works well, but it again maybe isn't as essential as what it certainly seemed like during my time with the beta. The other thing I would say about that multiplayer is they have 13 maps, so 13 multiplayer maps to start off with, 2 multiplayer maps for the zombies mode, by the way. 13 maps. They just added Nuketown, which is a classic Black Ops map from years and years and years ago. It's also a very small map, a very chaotic multiplayer map. So we're basically now up to 13 maps plus 1, which, if I do my math correctly, is 14. But unfortunately, there are a small handful of maps that are really bad, like really, really bad. And those are the smaller multiplayer maps, specifically Warhead, Subsonic, and Babylon are just 3 maps that I am not crazy about. And part of the reason for that is because when you're playing in a multiplayer map, when you get shot and killed and then you respawn, you have to respawn somewhere away from where the thing was that killed you originally. Otherwise, you're just going to live, die, repeat like that Tom Cruise movie. The problem is that when you're in a very small multiplayer map, there aren't a lot of safe spaces for you to respawn in and give you enough time to get your bearings, readjust, observe the match and kind of make your move and go on. So 3 of those maps, 4 if you include Nuketown, are just too crazy and too small, and they really get in the way of stuff like the objective-based multiplayer mode. So if you're trying to play a mode like Domination or any Control or Hardpoint or whatever those other multiplayer maps are, if they're not a map that is, if they're not a mode that is round-based, so like you die, you wait for everyone else to die, and then everyone spawns back at the same time. If you're not doing something like that, man, it's just chaos. Like Domination is a real mess on some of those maps. I would also argue that there are not great spawn points in Domination for other maps as well. This is what I experienced during my time with the multiplayer. They may have since fixed that. I couldn't quite tell you. But I did find that some of those maps were quite the letdown and were even, pain in the asses to play regardless of which mode you played on. So that was a bit of a disappointment. I think the progression system does require a fair bit of repetition. I also miss just how dynamic the progression system was in something like Black Ops, where I could complete challenges. In Black Ops, in Modern Warfare, where I could complete specific challenges to earn additional attachments. But in fairness, instead of having a zillion different sights and scopes and rear grips and stocks and ammo clip types and lasers and all this shit and that you can equip on a gun, Black Ops still has that, but it is a small collection of those that are supposed to provide meaningful, specific, and unique trade-offs, whether that's you have a much better scope so you can zoom in and see a lot further away, but it's at the risk of maybe being a little bit slower to actually snap to that site or whatever the thing may be. So I ended up giving the Black Ops 6 zombies and multiplayer mode combined a 7 out of 10. I think it's good. It is not great, and I think depending on where you landed on last year's Modern Warfare 3, which was easily the multiplayer was easily the best part about that package from what I played. Again, I did not play the zombies mode, and I am not a Warzone guy, so I'm not a big battle royale guy when it comes to Call of Duty, but I will say that multiplayer is good. I've even warmed up a little bit more to some of the smaller maps. I forget which one it was that I was playing. It might have been Subsonic, where I think I was playing on I think it was Team Deathmatch. So it's just like 6 versus 6, first to 100 kills or whatever wins. And I was like, oh, maybe they improved the spawns. I don't quite know, but yeah, I think Black Ops 6 multiplayer is good. Really enjoy that zombies mode. I might even have to get some friends together, get some people together, play some zombies mode with other people, because I've really, really enjoyed that. I'm also like lasting longer in bed because of Blue Chew. No, I'm joking. I'm lasting longer in the zombies modes because I have a better idea of like how the zombies respawn, how the timer works, how you can upgrade, what are the good upgrades to get, and so on and so forth. So I give zombies mode a big thumbs up, and I give the multiplayer mode a little thumbs up. But anyways, that's kind of be my like final thoughts on Black Ops 6. I think it is a good game overall with a great campaign and a decent multiplayer offering. As well, if that is your thing. I will just say I was talking to somebody, this is actually somebody at work, who was kind enough, generous enough with their time to read my campaign review of Black Ops 6, saying, oh, you know what, I'm thinking about getting it. I haven't played like a Call of Duty. I think they like referenced like Black Ops 3, the Christopher Maloney Black Ops 3. And I said, hey, like, I don't know if you should like spend full price on Black Ops if you're really just going after the multiplayer, going after the campaign mode. If you're after multiplayer, great. There's so much for you to sink your teeth into. It's almost crazy. But if you're really a story-based, campaign-focused person, you might want to wait for Black Ops to go on sale, or get it on Game Pass if you have the ability to play it on Game Pass. That is how I've been playing it. I think that's a great way to play that game. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about news. Stick around. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the podcast. I just wanted to mention, because I totally forgot, that PS5 Pro is launching. That is launching tomorrow, November 7th. I do not have a PS5 Pro. I am not planning on getting a PS5 Pro, but if you were curious about it, there are some sites. I would do a review roundup this if this was easier to do. I have no problem talking about it, but because it's kind of like a seeing is believing thing, and reading a review for something that you can't see might be hard. But I will say that reviews for the PS5 Pro are starting to come out now. With like IGN did a review of it. They gave it a 7 saying the PlayStation 5 Pro is an impressive console with noticeable boosts in performance and graphics for games that take advantage of its powerful hardware. But for $700 US, you'll need to think twice about whether or not to upgrade. The upgrade is worth the price. So if you're curious about the PS5 Pro, definitely go check out some reviews if that is your thing. And that's going to be out tomorrow. That's out November 7th. So happy PS5 Pro launch date, everybody. But we're not here to talk about the PS5 Pro because there's really not that much to talk about. We're here to talk about Nintendo, more specifically, the Nintendo Switch. Actually, there's just a lot of Nintendo news in general. I've received fair feedback that I don't always talk about Nintendo, and that's totally fair. But for the longest time, they've been gearing up for a new console launch. So the games haven't always been that groundbreaking, considering we're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. But let's talk about what those shoes may be and when they will be dropping. Nintendo has confirmed that the Nintendo Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. However, information about the console was still to be revealed at a later date. I'm getting this news from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles. Now, like, Video Games Chronicles, wrote this news story up. Nintendo just kind of said it. Like, they just went out there and just said, you want to play those games? You want to play games? Well, guess what? You can play the old games on the new console. So in a post to Twitter, a message from Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa also announced that further information about the successor would come at a later date. This is also part of the announcement that the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with the Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. They also confirmed the Nintendo Switch Online would be available on the console as well. Here's the announcement. This is Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about blah, 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 blah. So, what do you think that actually means? Because I don't know if it's necessarily so cut and dry. I have a small amount of Nintendo Switch physical games. Will I be able to put those physical games into the Nintendo Switch 2? Or will it only be the online digital games that I have that will be available to the Nintendo Switch 2? That's the kind of the question that I have, is how backwards compatible are we going? Is it like, I'm not trying to be Sir Mix-a-Lot over here, but like, if Baby got backwards compatible, like, how backwards compatible is that thing? You know what I'm saying? Right? So I'm definitely excited to know that, you'll be able to play old Nintendo Switch games on a new Nintendo console. We don't quite know just how far they are willing to go. Nintendo also announced that there are no changes to the Switch 2 announcement plan. They said that they intend to announce the console before the end of its current fiscal year, which concludes on March 31st of 2025. We still gotta wait, man, because they're still planning on selling Nintendo Switch consoles this holiday season. This will be, by every stretch of the imagination, the last hurrah for the Nintendo Switch, regardless of what you think about the current state of the games and the hardware and all that stuff. This will be the last hurrah. So they probably want to get that out there. And then within, maybe it's a scenario where they announce it in, mid-January, early February, right? How long do they really need for a run-up for the console? I don't know. Do they need a month to tell people? Do they need 2 months to tell people and get pre-orders and all that stuff? If it's a scenario where they are going to have a lot more consoles available, maybe they're not quite as worried about pre-orders as much as they are getting the messaging out that console is readily available. we shall see. But in case you were wondering, like, they're talking a little bit about it, but they're not going to talk about everything, at least not for a while. This is also in relation to Nintendo having lowered its Switch forecast sales decline after their Switch forecast after sales declined 31%. So they've sold just about as many Switches as they possibly are going to. So they're kind of tempering expectations for the forecast, at least for the rest of this year. But we'll see how that goes. The thing I actually wanted to talk about, and is something I haven't actually had a ton of time with, but Nintendo has put out a music app that requires the Nintendo Switch Online. So you have to be a Nintendo Switch Online member, but it is called the Nintendo Music app, and it features decades of Nintendo songs and soundtracks. And I was messing around with it a little bit on my phone, and I don't maybe love the interface. At least I'm not super familiar with the interface, but the fact that I can just, play the Animal Crossing theme song whenever I want, I think that's a great idea. I don't know if it's going to pick up on the mic, but yeah, I don't know how well that's picking up on the mic. Anyways, I'm going to stop playing that before Nintendo sues me. But anyways, the fact that I can listen to that song whenever I want warms the cockles of my heart. I will, however, say that I did have to sign up for a free trial for Nintendo Switch Online because I'm not currently a member, and I don't know if I'll continue to be a member in order to just listen to this music. It's about $5 a month or $30 a year. It's very cheap compared to Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, but you still got to be a member. Let's move on. Call of Duty. Let's talk Call of Duty. We haven't talked about Call of Duty enough. People were wondering. I was wondering. I think maybe even you were wondering. What's going to happen to Call of Duty under Microsoft? It wasn't the first game that was wholly developed under the tutelage of Microsoft, but still, it was Microsoft's first Call of Duty game, whether you like it or not. I think it was a success. Even if you don't compare it to last year's Black Ops 3, or sorry, to Modern Warfare 3, excuse me, I still think Black Ops 6 is a success. But those out there wondering what is going to happen under Call of Duty, under Call of Duty under Microsoft, word on the street is that the structure won't change. Now, I didn't realize this is the number we were up to. I thought it was less than that, but there are currently 15 different studios at Activision that are working on the franchise. Now, keep in mind that we're kind of at this point with Black Ops, with Call of Duty in general, where the development cycles for these games have gotten quite a bit long in comparison to the past, right? So in the past, they maybe had like a 1 or 2 year turnaround time. But in this case, it's been a much longer development cycle. Seeing if I can pull it up here for this game. So Call of Duty Black Ops 6 boasts the longest development cycle in Call of Duty history, spanning 4 years. And that was a effort that was between Treyarch and Raven Software co-developing the game, right? So 2 teams working over the course of 4 years to get that game out. I can see why there'd be 15 different studios involved. We don't currently know who is up next. So when we think about, for context, when we think about Call of Duty studios, there are basically 3 studios out there these days that would be referred to as the main studios at main Call of Duty studios. So the main Call of Duty studios would be Treyarch. It would be Sledgehammer Games, which Sledgehammer Games just did Modern Warfare 3 last year. And then the other team would be Infinity Ward, right? Infinity Ward would be the other team. Now, there have been times in the past, like with Modern Warfare 3, where Sledgehammer Games and Infinity Ward have worked together. Raven Software seem to be teaming up with Treyarch for support. Raven Software also worked on Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. So if I'm looking at this timeline, I'm going to assume that the next game is going to be from Infinity Ward. Now, I should also mention that the reason why I'm, breaking it down between the three developing studios, Treyarch, Sledgehammer, and Infinity Ward, is that you used to get specific sub-series within those studios. So we've always thought of Treyarch as the Black Ops people. In fact, Treyarch have never worked on a non-Black Ops game. All right. However, we also used to think of Infinity Ward as the Modern Warfare people, going back to Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare in 2007. They would then go on to make Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, Modern Warfare 3 in 2011. Infinity Ward are also the people who made Ghosts. We don't talk about Ghosts for a variety of reasons. But then you also think about Sledgehammer. Sledgehammer kind of, and I hate to say it, maybe the redheaded stepchild of the developing studios, because Sledgehammer have made great games like Advanced Warfare, but they've also made not great games like World War II and Veilguard. Right? So the rumors were that the next Call of Duty game, next year's Call of Duty game, is actually a sequel to Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2, if you forget, takes place between the 1980s and 2025. So it would be weird that a non-Treyarch team would work on a sequel to Black Ops. So maybe that's all bullshit and I've just been lied to. But I'm always, it's one of those things where I guess I must really be, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but I must be like a true Call of Duty fan in the sense that I am always interested to see what the next game is, right? They drop Black Ops 6. I'm like, great. Where do we go from here? I'll enjoy the game while it's out and all that stuff, but like, where do we go from here? Right? I think in the case of Modern Warfare 3, it was like, man, where do they go from here? Because I don't know, man. Like, having such a short dev cycle for Modern Warfare 3 was a horrible, horrible situation. But then they proved that like they can be in it to win it for the long haul with a development cycle like the 4 years that Black Ops saw. So I'm curious to see what happens. But under Microsoft, seems like things aren't changing, and there are 15 different studios all working together. I want to read you this from Video Games Chronicle, though. In recent years, in order to keep up with the yearly release cycle of Call of Duty, Activision Studios would trade off each yearly entry, meaning a studio could take up to 3 years to produce a game rather than be expected to produce one each November. Activision confirmed in 2021 that all of its core studios were working on the franchise, which is why you don't see Tony Hawk games. This is why you don't see Spyro games or Crash Bandicoot games, because everyone's working on Call of Duty. It's why you don't see Guitar Hero games. Well, you don't see Guitar Hero for a variety of reasons. But speaking to Washington Post, Matt Cox, the senior vice president and general manager of Call of Duty at Activision, claimed that this has not changed since the Microsoft acquisition. He says, when you look at Treyarch and Raven, they have a history of working together within the Black Ops franchise, going all the way back to 2010. Thanks, Cox. I just said that. You have this history with people you work with, and that ultimately shows when it comes to the finished product from a publishing and go-to-market standpoint. And then also a reminder that the Black Ops 6 Season 1 starts November 14th. That's next week. I'll be curious to see how that goes. They are offering a colossal amount of free content, including multiplayer, zombies, and Warzone maps. But I don't think they've confirmed everything that's going to be part of that Season 1. We'll find out. Let's move on. Harry Potter. Who doesn't love Harry Potter? Harry Potter, the boy who lived in it. Cuppa, I don't know how British Harry Potter is, but I do know this. I do know that they are working on a sequel to Hogwarts Legacy. I also know that HBO is working on a Harry Potter television series. What we now know is that Hogwarts Legacy's sequel, which has been rumored and talked about to great lengths, that is also unannounced, will tie in with the HBO series. And in this news article, Warner Brothers also reminds people that Hogwarts Legacy recently topped its sales of 30 million units. You know, chief financial officer of Warner Brothers Discovery being like, yeah, of course we're working on one. David Haddad, president of Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, echoed that language around the idea that, of course, they're working on a sequel in a new interview with Variety. He said Warner Bros. Games is working on a Hogwarts Legacy follow-up, which he described as a very big priority for the company's top executives. Of course, Haddad said the sequel will share some big picture storytelling elements with Warner Bros. Television's upcoming Harry Potter series, which is targeted to hit HBO in 2026. The rest of the company was very curious about what we helped to unlock with Hogwarts Legacy last year, he said. June, it was and just a reminder that in June, it was claimed that Rocksteady Studios was developing an unannounced Hogwarts Legacy director's cut. I doubt that director's cut is going to include Quidditch because they put out that Quidditch game. No one talks about that Quidditch game. I don't know how that Quidditch game is doing. It must be doing great, terrible. It was a PS Plus free thing for the month. But anyways, we'll see. I would be interested in a Hogwarts Legacy sequel. I just feel like they need to do a little bit more with an engaging story. Like, it can't just be, hey, you get to run around the Harry Potter Hogwarts world again. Isn't that fun? I think there needs to be a little bit more to that. Combat was kind of fun and chaotic in a way, though. Speaking of updates and promises for a brighter future, Star Wars Outlaws, the creative director of Star Wars Outlaws, has shared details on the game's biggest update yet. The fourth title update is going to promise improvements to combat, stealth, and character controls. Now, remember this. This is important. This update for Star Wars Outlaws is tied to the Steam release of Star Wars Outlaws. So right now, if you want to get Star Wars Outlaws on PC, you have to buy it through Ubisoft's digital store or from Epic Games Store. If you remember, Ubisoft is already committed to putting their games out on Steam day one, starting with Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is coming out later next year. But now we know that, this update is tied to making Star Wars Outlaws the best version it can be, as it tries to position itself as a game that more people should buy now that it's available on Steam. When it comes to Steam, I should say. The other thing to note is that there's been some shakeup at Ubisoft. Ubisoft Massive's Drew Reckner, who recently took on the role of Star Wars Outlaws creative director, replacing Julian Gertie, who has switched his focus to the Division 3. So there's been a couple of shakeups there just within leadership for that team. But let's read on with what Drew Reckner had to say. The first key area of improvement to the game is combat, where we see a real opportunity to add more depth and excitement to the experience, further rewarding your tactics and precision. Our second key area is stealth, which is not only about improving the readability and consistency of enemy detection, but also providing choice in how you want to approach each encounter. Finally, our third key area of focus is centered around the character controls, which means improving the reliability of cover, increasing the responsiveness of climbing and crouching, and generally improving the consistency of the controls overall. This update is going to be coming out on November 21st, which is also when the Steam releases. This will also be when they launch their first paid DLC story, Veilguard. I am so curious. I should just write this game off. I should just forget this game ever happened, ignore it, eternal sunshine of the spotless mind myself with this game. But I am curious to see if this big update changes the way that game plays. And more importantly, are there going to be further updates after this? Like, are we seriously looking at a No Man's Sky style redemption story for Star Wars Outlaws? Are we seriously going to get a Cyberpunk 2077-esque update cycle that completely changes the way a lot of people perceive that game? Do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely not. No. Like, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this update that comes out on the 21st is the last big update for the game. Remains to be seen. But there is also every possibility that they continue to update this game in a way that leads people to compare it to something like the redemption that we saw with No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk. But it remains to be seen. All right, this is the last news story, and I'm not trying to pick on this game. I haven't even played this game myself, but Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is such a piece of shit video game that the developer is offering free DLC as compensation for launch issues. They are effectively apologizing for the state of the game. Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, if you don't know, is a open world driving and racing game that came out back in September. Let me fill you in on the details. Following the game's release on September 12th, many players found their experience marred by technical and server difficulties. To make up for the launch issues, customers who played the game before September 30th will be offered 2 exclusive in-game items free of charge. These include an Adventurer Off-Road Edition of the 1986 Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe and a pack of 5 stickers for customizing their cars. These will be added to qualifying players' inventories in December for the opening of Season 2. Nacon will release the game's second major patch on November 5th, so that's already happened. I would be curious to know how that turned out for people. They said that the update primarily focuses on graphical enhancements for PS5. The patch also optimizes game performance on PC and Xbox Series. Additionally, it includes network upgrades, improved peripheral compatibility, and numerous bug fixes. Now, if you don't know too much about Solar Crown, I will read you a blurb from Video Games Chronicles Review. They say, Solar Crown is a perfectly enjoyable open-world racing game with solid handling and plenty to do, but its world map is too large to maintain a consistent level of detail, and it loses some personality as a result. This, combined with occasional frame rate issues, even in performance mode on consoles, give the game an unpolished feel. If you're looking for a new open-world racing racer, we'd still recommend it as long as you don't expect anything particularly innovative. To which I'd say there has been a serious lack of innovation in the open-world racing game genre as it is. So yet another same old does not sound all that exciting. Then again, I have not played Solar Crown. Maybe it would be different if I played it, but I think I will stick with Forza Horizon, even if Forza Horizon is very similar to past Forza Horizon games. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we're going to talk Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered and Dragon Age the Veilguard. Stick around. We will be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt. We're here to talk about video games, damn it. Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster. It is not a remake of Horizon Zero Dawn. This is a remaster. It is a standalone game or a upgrade, for those that already own it. So if you want to go buy Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster on PS5 and you've never done so before, great, you can pay like full price or whatever the cost is for it. But if you already own a version of Horizon Zero Dawn, I believe it, I should have checked to see if it's the Zero Dawn Complete Edition or not, but you have a path to upgrade to Zero Dawn Remaster, which includes the additional DLC expansion, the Frozen Wilds, as well as the improved visuals. And when I say improved visuals, I mean improved visuals. This game does not feature any of the updates or changes or quality of life improvements that were found in Horizon Forbidden West. So if you want to play Forbidden West, by all means, go do so if that is your thing. But like the paraglider and the melee combat changes and the new weapons and the new abilities, none of that stuff is in Zero Dawn Remastered. But what is in Zero Dawn Remastered is a very pretty game. I have not had the chance to compare side by side. I've been playing the PC version. I don't know why I just turned to my PC to be like, look at this thing. But I've been playing the PC version of Zero Dawn Remaster, and to me, on paper, naked eye, it looks about as good as I remember Forbidden West looking, which was a very pretty game. So I will say, purely blind, I have not compared it with Forbidden West, and I have not compared it with the original version of Zero Dawn. But I will say, when I fired it up, I was like, man, this is a great looking game. I do really, really like running around in this world and exploring it. I will say, lucky me, that the Zero Dawn Remaster on PC now includes trophies. So if I did want to go back and replay the game, I could grind out the trophies if I wanted to. I am very, very tempted to do so. I will, however, say that in my time playing the game, I have completely skipped every cutscene, every story. I have mashed through every dialogue option so I can focus on just playing the game and running around and exploring the world. The facial capture stuff, from what I've seen, does look good. I think there's some really good lip syncing, some very good facial capture in those characters and stuff like that. But for me, I just really wanted to look at the grass, look at the rocks, the trees, the water, the big robot, creatures and all of that stuff. And I will say, I think it looks really nice. I think for the price they're charging for the upgrade, it is reasonable, even if it would have been nice to have some of the quality of life stuff that is in Forbidden West. But I guess I would kind of de-insensitize people to play Forbidden West unless they really wanted to see where that story goes, which I've talked about ad nauseum. I don't care too much for where the story goes in Forbidden West. But I think that gameplay and that world and stuff is gorgeous, and it is a lot of fun. Am I going to keep playing Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered? Probably, because I want to get the trophies. I also never finished the Horizon Forbidden West DLC. I've also never played the DLC for Horizon Zero Dawn. So if I wanted to go get back into Horizon, I got a lot of Horizon to get into. But for now, I'll keep picking away at it, mostly to grind out the trophies. I do want that platinum. I got the platinum in Ghost of Tsushima. I could probably do it for Zero Dawn. It does not seem like a hard thing to do. But for those that have never played Zero Dawn, this is probably the best version of Zero Dawn that you can possibly play at this point. Whether you're playing it on PC or on PlayStation 5, it is a very good looking game. And now that good looking game looks even better. Speaking of looks, Dragon Age: The Veilguard, man, oh man. That's a gorgeous looking video game with a great use of ray tracing from what I've seen. It is not full ray tracing. This is not cyberpunk. This is not Alan Wake levels of ray tracing, but it is the type of ray tracing when in terms of lighting and stuff like that, lighting effects, that to me are almost worth the cost of performance in that game. So that's about as high a praise I can possibly give ray tracing as far as I'm concerned. But Dragon Age: The Veilguard is the 4th Dragon Age game. This is from your friends and mine at BioWare. BioWare, owned by EA. BioWare, the people that made the Mass Effect games. BioWare, the people that made Star Wars, The Old Republic, and Knights of the Old Republic. BioWare, the people that made Baldur's Gate, the original Baldur's Gate. So we have a pedigree of RPG chops. I don't know if I have like something in my throat or if I'm just getting sick, or I don't know what the hell my problem is. So I'm sorry about my voice cutting in and out. It's not my audio. It's not my microphone. It is me. But anyways, this is the new game from the people that made Baldur's Gate. Dragon Age the Veilguard is more specifically a direct follow-up to Dragon Age the Veilguard. You are on the hunt for Solus, who is the Dreadwolf, and your job basically is to stop you basically, without spoiling too much of the game. Solus is trying to rip apart, open the veil, and in you stopping him from opening the veil, you've actually caused more harm than good, and basically kicked off what seems like the apocalypse in the world of Dragon Age, and it is up to you and your team to stop him, basically. Stop the events that you've set forth by trying to stop Solus, the Dreadwolf, in the first place. Dragon Age, if you don't know, is a fantasy RPG series. So we're talking elves, we're talking dwarves, we're talking swords, and all of that stuff. I will say that Dragon Age the Veilguard has a little bit more of a stylistic look to it. Is a little more bright, a little more colorful than past Dragon Age games, and I think it's better for it. I think it is a really, really nice looking game from everything I've seen. It is also one of those games, like any RPG, where you are making a character. You are starting the game, you're making a character, you're going through, oh, what size do I want my jowls to be? Do I want my cheekbones to be a certain way? Do I want my arms, my legs, my hips, my ass, my genitalia to be a certain size and shape? And, what's my character class? What is my background? You can pick things like, gender identity and pronouns and all of that stuff as well in the game. But you are very much like making a character and then living out that role. You do play as a character called Rook. You can change. Your background dictates what your character's last name is. You can pick you can actually name your character a first name however you want, but the last name is based on the background that you picked. But everybody still just calls you Rook, like the chess piece. They even reference chess in the game. And that's kind of where it's at. I picked like I made a lady elf who is a rogue, and her history is that she was like a treasure hunter. I was thinking, oh, I'll make like a lady elf Nathan Drake-esque character, like maybe a bit of a smart ass, a rogue, maybe a faster, more dagger and bow and arrow focused character, but maybe a little more of like a swashbuckling-esque, lovable dirtbag sort of thing. I haven't really got the dirtbag part of that character, because when you are faced with the apocalypse, that game seems very much to be like, hey, you should try to help people and not be a dick. So you really can't be like a giant asshole based on what I've seen from dialogue choices. Yes, there are dialogue choices. I already made choices that have gotten people hurt in that game. Very much that multiple. Well, I don't know if there's multiple endings in the game. I'm not far enough in. But multiple choices. You can choose to talk to people. It is one of those games. It is one of those games. Though the difference between something like this and Baldur's Gate is that it is not an open world game. You are exploring various segmented zones that are connected through fast traveling and loading screens and stuff like that. It's maybe not quite as egregious as something like Starfield, because Starfield is promising these huge worlds in this vast galaxy to explore, but all of that vast galaxy is locked away by a loading screen. This seems more to be harkening back to the structured nature of something like original Dragon Age or Dragon Age 2 in a way. It is not the huge open world. I'll say this, if nothing else, it is not the huge, massive open world game that something like Dragon Age Inquisition was. The other thing I would say about comparing this to something like Baldur's Gate 3 is that this is an action RPG. In fact, you do not need to worry about your teammates dying at all. The only health bar in the game is you. You can command your teammates to cast different abilities, or you can choose to tell your teammates to target various enemies while fighting. But it's a action RPG. You are hitting one button for your light attacks. You're hitting another button for your heavy attacks. You can dodge. You can do a long dodge. You can use I have a bow and arrow that I can shoot. The bow and arrow recharges, so I don't have to worry about ammo, but it just recharges over time. And then you have about 3 different combat abilities. You can use at any time. You can use a health potion. And as you fight enemies, you can stagger them and then do like an execution style move. So like, I hit this enemy enough times to basically break their guard. They're staggered. I can hit them with an execution move, which may be a one-hit kill. It may just do significant damage. And then the other thing was that as you build up your ultimate meter, you can issue out an ultimate attack, which does a huge amount of damage in the area as well. But you don't, have to worry about healing your mage or whatever, right? Like they are, it is you, the party structure is you and 2 other characters. It is just a group of 3 at any given time in the game, from what I've seen so far. So when you go out and you pick a mission or you explore a certain world, you are picking from your group of characters. I have not gotten everybody in the game yet. You start the game with like 3 people in your group, but 1 person is injured and basically recovering as the story goes along. I'm assuming you'll get them later. And then there has been another story mission that has required me to go to a town and meet this assassin. There's like this city in Dragon Age that has a government, but is secretly run, and we're not so secretly, I guess, run by a league of assassins. And the leader of that assassins group is an old grandmother who has asked you to find her grandson, who is like one of the best assassins to ever do it. He's the demon of whatever. He's a bad man who they think is dead, but might be in prison and all of that stuff. And so he has now joined. It's very obvious, like when you start that mission, like this guy, once you get him, he's going to join your party because you're helping these assassins under the idea that you have bigger fish to fry, which is saving the world from this apocalypse, and you need him in your group. So that's kind of how it goes. But then once you get him, he has his own backstory. You can talk to him. You can romance him if you want. From everything I've seen, you can romance pretty much everybody in the game. I lied. I think I have 5 people in my group because I did get 3 at the start, and then I met another person, and then and then I finally got this assassins guy in my groups. But it's cool because like when you're, like in, Baldur's Gate or whatever, when you're running around, like those 2 people that you have in your group will talk to each other, comment on each other and all that stuff, right? Like the assassin is referred to as the mage killer. He kills a lot of mages. And then I had a mage in my group running with us, so they chatted it up and all that stuff. And I will say that the story is maybe a little slow to get going, but I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm interested in meeting the rest of the cast of characters as well. I have not met everybody yet. I think the combat is decent. I think it's maybe a little easy and a little mindless. Like when you think about some RPGs, especially something like Baldur's Gate, you think a mentally taxing, tactical, strategic style game. This definitely leans more into just play it like an action game the way you would something like a Mass Effect where you're just playing it as a shooter or whatever. In fact, it is very Mass Effect in that way as well. But, it's from the people who made Mass Effect. So Dragon Age Veilguard doesn't seem like that big of a surprise. I will say that some of the stuff around upgrading your items and weapons and buying new stuff is a little confusing. Because you also need to you can buy stuff from shopkeepers. You can sell stuff to shopkeepers, but when you sell stuff to shopkeepers, you are also upgrading your reputation with that shopkeeper, and different shopkeepers represent different factions in the world. So the other thing I would say is that you can also donate weapons and currency and stuff to upgrading your workshop back at your base, which also makes weapons better. But if you find a duplicate weapon out in the world or a duplicate item, it will combine to make it stronger. So it's I'm trying to wrap my head around How much of this stuff actually matters? What do I actually need to do to make, if I find a sword or a bow that I really like, how do I make it better and just make that the only bow for me? You can equip, each character in your party has a specific weapon and armor set that they use, but you will find new armor and new weapons for them out in the world. So you can always upgrade your assassin or your, dwarf lady or whoever is in your group. They also, so you can equip different, items and weapons on those party members. You can also upgrade their skills and get them different skills and different abilities, different perks, different bonuses, stuff like that. Your character, you can equip different weapons, you can equip different armor, different helmets, as well as different runes and different accessories. So there's a little bit more that you can equip on your character if you want, but it's RPG stuff. You're looking at numbers. Oh, this is better than this. This is whatever. And then you also have a skill tree that you are upgrading as you level up as well, getting new abilities and stuff like that. Long story short, this is, if anything, a little action-y, a little simplified compared to Dragon Age games of the past and RPGs as of recent. Makes you wonder if the success of Dragon Age, makes you wonder if the success of stuff like the turn-based combat in Like a Dragon or Baldur's Gate is going to force RPG developers to go back to more strategic and tactical based combat instead of action combat. It remains to be seen. I honestly don't know. That being said, I still enjoyed the combat in this game. I actually like it quite a bit. It is fun to engage with, but it does make you wonder if if you automate some of the combat by making it more action focused, are you reducing player agency and the ability to role play in that game by having a more action focused timing based combat? You know what? I don't know. I feel like it's two different things for two different people. Some people may like both. Some people may prefer Dragon Age over, Baldur's Gate or what have you. But it does feel like a modern BioWare game. It feels faithful to what BioWare has been doing in the past. So I don't have a lot of grievances with the Dragon Age, with Dragon Age: The Veilguard just yet. But I'm going to keep playing that. Maybe keep my eyes out on some other games that may be coming out around this time. I think we're still waiting on the two last big games for me would be Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. When is Stalker 2 coming out? When is Stalker 2 coming out? Stalker 2 is supposed to be out on the 20th of November. And then Indiana Jones is supposed to be out on December 8th. So those are probably the last two big games for me. But if anything changes, I will, of course, let you know. That is going to do it for the podcast this week. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree. That is linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. I am on Instagram. I am on Threads, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Did I say YouTube already? I'm on YouTube as well. That's going to do it for the podcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next week. Take it easy.